21st, and then today it said it was at 4 a.m. Oh, what's at 4 a.m.? I don't think I typed 4 a.m. Did anybody else see that? Did anybody else get a time that was a little bit off? If you did, um, oh yeah, interesting. Let me check. Let me see. Maybe I need to double check my Zoom process because I definitely am not gonna meet you guys at 4 a.m. And if I did do something like that, I apologize. Gosh, that makes me feel so bad. Let's see here. I'm looking here to see what the Zoom. Okay, what I have here is 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I don't know if Zoom has an issue or I'm in Nigeria, so I thought it was 4 a.m. my time. Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Oh, you didn't say you were in Nigeria. Okay, well that explains everything. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and answer some of your questions, and a lot of you submitted questions in advance. And I always, as we do every week, normally our meeting time is Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's when we meet for the Black Stock Market Program. And also, if you can't make it, you can catch the recordings of all the meetings at theblackstockmarketprogram.com. Just log in, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. And then also, if you want to submit a question, if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, you can click that link at the top of your curriculum section and leave me a question and put your question in there. Try to make it somewhat short so that I can get through as many questions as possible. I'm directly available. I answer every single student question you guys submit, and also you'll get emails from me regularly if you haven't been getting those yet when I announce what stocks I'm buying that week, as well as any additional curricula, special lectures, things like that. And we've got probably about 5 years worth of material in there as well. So just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and you can see all that stuff. Okay, so the thing I want to start off with, actually, I always like to start off with kind of a special message like this. This is your public service announcement for the day. Is I want to talk to you guys about intentionality and financial intentionality, and just kind of what that looks like in my view. One of the things that I think is really important for you to understand, because you guys know, this is my area of expertise. This is what I do, and so a lot of times I observe what is being stated in media. The political spin on economics. There's a lot of political conversation around economics. The United States government is going incredibly, way deep in debt. The financial habits of most Americans are not very good, and financial responsibility and intelligence really isn't promoted heavily in the media. And one of the things that I've observed is that part of the whole political pimping process, the way politicians kind of pimp you a little bit, is they seem to like to make sure that you feel as helpless as possible. They like for you to believe that they are the only way for you to get ahead, that they are the only way for you to be successful. They are the only way. Voting for them is the only way for you to have an opportunity to have anything in this country. And that's just not true. The studies basically show that that when you make certain decisions when it comes to your economics, you're going to be better off than somebody who's not. It's real basic. It goes back to when I was a little kid. I remember I noticed that when I got my allowance money, let's say it was $10 a week, it was some ridiculous amount of money because I guess I'm getting old. And I remember that, I had friends. I had a couple friends who were big spenders. They get their money, the money's gone quick. You know how it is. Y'all remember those trips to the candy store and everything. You run up in there, it's the best feeling in the world, like running into the crack house. And we would just buy up all the candy, the money's gone. But then I would have friends, I had a couple of friends that were just big savers. They were really big on basically, you know, basically holding on to things. Like they have a whole theory about it in psychology. I think they call it anal retentiveness. And I remember noticing that the kids who held on to their money just always had money. Like that's it. And it made sense, right? It's very basic. It's like, well, because they're not giving their money away, they've got more money than the rest of us. And so when we needed money, we would end up going to the kid who saved his money to borrow money, right? And to some extent, the Jewish community has kind of mastered that. They were the original bankers. They were the first bankers in Europe anyway. And now, I mean, of course, everything started in Africa. We know this, right? So they copied off of us, right? So they had these bankers in ancient Europe, and most of them were part of that community. They lived in the slums because nobody wanted to associate with them except for when they needed money. And as part of their culture, as part of their deliberate cultural intentionality, they held on to their money. You know, when they got a dollar, their culture said, you don't spend that dollar, you hold on to that dollar. And so as a result, they were able to loan dollars out to other people or whatever the currency was at that time, because they made a decision to take that particular role in society. So what I would say to you guys is that, you know, I encourage you, never ever let go of the intentionality of your economic condition. There is an intentionality that goes into being broke, which is a cultural mindset. It's a decision that, look, okay, I think about this. If you make $50,000 a year, you're still going to have $500,000 that has flown through your hands in a 10-year period. Now, of course, a big chunk of that goes to the IRS. A big chunk of that goes to paying bills. A big chunk of that goes to necessities, to food, things like that. We know this, right? But then I was thinking about this song. Anybody remember that old song, Just Got Paid Friday Night? Body Hunter. Remember that? Yeah. And it's like, I just got paid, right? A great song, right? It made you feel good. And the song was popular and it was very relatable. Why? Well, because everybody knows that feeling. Everybody knows how good you feel when you just got paid and it's Friday night. You're free. So you got two things. You got money and freedom, right? That's what you spend your whole life chasing anyway, is money and freedom, right? Because freedom and money are connected, right? So you got money and you got free time. So you're feeling as good on a Friday night as you have felt the entire week. You don't feel that good on a Monday morning. You don't feel that good when it's Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock and you just had lunch. You're starting to get the itis and you're starting to get sleepy and you wish you could go home, right? But when you just got paid and it's Friday night, you feel really good. Well, that song was relatable because there's a culture behind that particular ideology. There's a culture behind that says, okay, let's make a song that people can relate to. So the song isn't going to be, feeling good because I saved my money, or just bought some real estate, feeling powerful, or just set up a trust fund for my kids. Like, they didn't sing about that. They sang about just got paid. It's Friday night, right? Because the culture, the intentionality of the culture is one that says that most of the people that are going to listen to this song, they don't have their own businesses. They work for other people. So they're not building wealth. They're getting paychecks, right? And then also receiving money sort of instills a good feeling because it's Friday night, which means now I convert from being a worker for capitalism to becoming a consumer for capitalism. At no point in this song is there any reference to being an owner in capitalism or being a producer in capitalism. Remember, I told you guys about the way economies work. You've got producers and you've got consumers. You've got owners and you've got renters, and you've got employers and you've got employees. So the song doesn't reference being an owner, being a producer, or being being an owner, a producer, or an employer, right? It references the thing that people can relate to, which is just got paid. It's Friday night. I am an employee. I now get to become a consumer, and after I pay my rent, I'm gonna go and support capitalism by going to the club and popping bottles, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? Give me a yes in the chat if you get what I'm saying. I know that sounds that's kind of a weird way. You probably never seen it sort of taught this way, but these are the things I enjoy. I enjoy seeing all the little ways that our culture teaches us how to view money, right? And it's very slick. It's very sneaky, right? White supremacy wouldn't work if it were blatant and wide open. They have to sneak it into your food. Like, they got to sprinkle the poison in the food that you eat every day, and then get you to become a servant to capitalism, which is actually the way Europeans have done things for over 1,000 years. When Alicia and I were watching this old, she's a professor too. She's into psychology. So we talk a lot about psychology because that's what she's really interested in. And we were watching this thing. It was on the Great Courses, and it was a great course about the Black Plague in Europe. And one of the things they talked about was the economic system in Europe 1,000 years ago. Well, 1,000 years ago, the economic system was very similar to what it is right now. You had 90% of the people who were trained to work extremely hard at very low wages to support the lifestyle of the top 10%. The top 10%, the nobility lived well. Everybody else was a worker. Everybody else was a peasant, right? So in general, the opportunity that you have in America is that you actually get the chance to switch roles. If you can overcome your programming, then you can go wherever you want, right? If you can just sort of get away from like and just say, okay, this is not what I'm going to do, then you can go in a different direction. So the slavery is a little more subtle now. And as I mentioned, I love to mention to you guys that I don't think they're ever going to pay reparations for slavery, not anytime soon. But they've been giving you preparations for slavery since you were a child. So when people say, "Well, why is it that the public school system doesn't teach financial literacy? Why they teach everything else? They can teach you how Billy can have two daddies, but they can't teach you anything about about how to balance a checkbook or how to build wealth." Well, that's because that's not their job and not their goal. They don't want everybody thinking the way the billionaires and the millionaires think, because then there will be no workers to support the billionaires and the millionaires. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's very important. Intentionality is really important. So be very intentional about how you train your children. Wealth doesn't tend to happen by accident. It tends to happen because somebody made a conscious decision or a conscious effort in order to get there. So I'm going to answer a few of your questions now. The questions that have been pre-submitted. Like I said, every week we will meet Tuesday. We always meet Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern for those of you who are new. And also every piece of content, the places you can submit your questions, everything is right there. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, you'll find it right there. Okay, so the first question is from Pacola Brown. Pacola asks, what index fund would you suggest to invest my money for my granddaughter for longevity? Well, Pacola, I'm not going to make a recommendation on any particular index fund, but I will say this. There are things out there. Vanguard has a lot of great funds. If you just want to get a piece of the S&P 500, literally, I can tell you how to make your granddaughter close to being a millionaire in about 5 minutes. It would take you less than 5 minutes to set your granddaughter up for life. Everybody who's got kids or grandkids should probably listen, because this is going to change your children's lives. If you do 80% of what I tell you right now, your children and grandchildren will be either millionaires or very close to it. Are you listening? Tell me, please confirm to me that you're hearing me right now. This is very important. You can go into, say, a Robinhood or a Stash account and set up an account. It doesn't have to be a custodial account in the child's name, just an account where the child will be the beneficiary at some point. Set it up according to that $5 a day investing plan that I put together for you guys. And it's very, very basic, very, very simple. Anybody can do it. And literally have it set where you're going to automatically deposit, say, at least $30 or $40 a week into that account, and the thing that you would buy would be what they call a spider, SPDR. SPDR, the spider, is an S&P 500 index account, which basically tracks the entire S&P 500. Basically, what that means is that every week when that money's going in, your granddaughter is going to own a piece of McDonald's. They're going to own a piece of Nike. She's going to own a piece of Apple. She's going to be an owner in Tesla. She's going to be an owner in Google, right? But little pieces of those companies. And if you do that consistently, then what happens is that based on the history of the stock market, if a person had done that for you when you were a child, just some small amount of money every week, then what happens with the $5 a day investing plan? I talked about the math to you guys before. I like to talk about it a lot because it's really the basic stuff, the little tiny changes that make all the difference in the world. And basically, after about 10 years, that amount grows. If you're doing $5 a day, which is less than a Popeye's chicken value meal, or $35 a week, you would literally get to it's called the S&P 500 Spider Index. It's an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, which is a lot like a mutual fund. And basically, the ticker symbol is SPDR, by the way. And so after about 10 years, if you're doing the $5 a day investing plan, your child has about maybe $29,000 to $30,000 in the account. After a decade, after 20 years, they have about $100,000. After 30 years, they have $250,000. After 40 years, they have $750,000. So by the time they're 40, they've got $750,000. Now, if you flip that and did, say, $10 a day, which is about $70 a week, which is still less than what people put into their car note, then your child actually has double those amounts. So instead of having 30,000 at the 10-year mark, 100,000 at the 20-year mark, $250,000 at the 30-year mark, and $750,000 at the 40-year mark, they actually have 60,000 at the 10-year mark, 200,000 at the 20-year mark, $500,000 at the 30-year mark, and 1.5 million at the 40-year mark. And what's beautiful about this process is that anybody can do it. Finance and investing has become heavily democratized. This whole sort of dichotomous thinking that, that if you live in a capitalist society, then you have no form of socialism or upward mobility. That's a complete lie. America is overly capitalist, but to say that there's no opportunity for social mobility is just not true. There are many people who, including many people on the far left, who are like Bernie Sanders, who makes millions of dollars a year. Who, many of whom may have started off with very little and actually grew into becoming wealthy people because they invested in education, and somebody bought a house. Their parents bought a home and left them a home. Little things like that, right? So the stock ownership thing, I think, is a great opportunity to ensure that, say, by the time that child is 30 years old, they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is a basic plan that requires actually no financial literacy. It's something you can actually do today that would take you probably less than 5 minutes to do. And the key idea is that you don't want to touch it at that point. When I did a lecture, I did that special lecture. Actually, where's that lecture at? I think it's at 100yearfamilyplan.com. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna double check. I think the URL is 100. The number 100yearfamilyplan.com. Uh, I put together a special lecture on that page where basically I showed how a typical family, a regular family, just like you and I, regular people, could actually have $100 million in assets within, say a 100-year period, 2 or 3 generations, right? So this was big picture thing, and this was way out in the future, though. This is like 2 or 3 generations down, but still, it's one of those beautiful things where when you harness the power of compound interest, you can grow this into amazing things. But then what you do is, if you think about it in terms of like maybe military strategy, one thing I've noticed, like with military strategy, and I use this example because I have a lot of soldiers that follow me, because I love my soldiers. Like, first of all, because I respect soldiers, but then second of all, because they tend to, so my soldier friends don't spend as much time whining about a problem as they spend actually solving the problem. They execute the mission. So you're on a mission. You have a mission for your family. No matter what your situation is, you have a mission. So it's up to you to decide if you want to fulfill it or not. And one of the things that it makes me think about is in military, before they go and they decide they want to conquer a territory, they might go in and do a bombing raid where they'll have the planes fly over and they'll bomb the city, to sort of clear the path for the ground troops. And after you bomb the city like crazy, then you start sending the troops in to kind of finish the job, right? I know that's kind of a gruesome example, but whatever. I don't know. I've been playing video games with my kids a lot lately, so maybe this made me more violent. Who knows? But here's the point. I think of that $5 day plan as the bombing campaign for your kids. Like, you want your children to conquer their future. You want your children to conquer white supremacy. You want your children to be able to experience the joys of freedom and conquer anything trying to hold them back. You want them to burn through any obstacle. You want them to have Black excellence, all these things, right? So that $5 day plan to me is that first stage to liberating them with that bombing campaign. Like, son, I'm gonna bomb the future for you and clear a complete path for you, so that when you're 25 years old, you're not gonna be in these typical Negro struggles that we hear about every day, where you've got all these people that can't even make a move because they can't get access to $5,000. They have a great business idea, can't get $5 grand to get it off the ground. They really want to own a house, but they can't get 10 grand to go buy a house, right? Or they really want to quit their job, but they can't quit their job because they're so deep in student loan debt that they can't get out of it. So you're kind of bombing the future and clearing that path. I'm saying now you have no excuses. But then remember, after the bombing campaign, you send in the ground troops. So what would that analogy be? Well, to me, the ground troops would be preparing your child to be economically intelligent enough so that they know what to do with that opportunity. It's one thing. It's like if you think about basketball, it's one thing if I can clear a path for you to get an open shot, but it's another thing for you to know how to shoot the basketball. If it doesn't matter if I could give you the most wide open shot in the world, but if you throw the ball over the backboard, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I get you open, you're going to waste the opportunity. So the reason that most wealthy families lose all their wealth within 1 or 2 generations, 70% of wealthy families lose all their wealth in 1 generation, 90% of wealthy families lose all their wealth in 2 generations. The reason wealthy families lose all their wealth in 1 or 2 generations is because they did not go in for the kill. They did not complete the job. They cleared the path for the kids, and the kids threw the ball over the backboard because nobody taught them how to dribble and shoot. So for you, what you do is you want to make sure that your children, before they receive any other piece of these ridiculous educational curriculums that are out there, I see Norman says teaching our own. I'm sorry, but I think smart Black people, intelligent Black people, meaning the people that are in this room right now, we got more sense than everybody else. I'm sorry. The world is stupid. The world is crazy. A lot of y'all are like me. You were born on the wrong planet. You were born on the planet of ignorance and debauchery, and and rappers rapping about killing people and having sex with the devil and selling their vagina for $2. Right? You live in a crazy world. So you've got more sense than the rest of the world does. So what you do is you use that common sense to say, okay, to solve this problem, I'm going to prepare my kids to go in for the kill. If you have two people and you hand each of them $500,000, their mindset will make all the difference in the world in terms of what happens to that money at that point. It's like NBA players. You got some NBA players who take their $10 million a year salary and they're going to flip it into $1 billion. They're going to be billionaires before they're done because they're smart, like LeBron James. But then you got some NBA players, like maybe Antoine Walker, who, you give him $10 million a year, the money's gone, right? Mindset is everything. Training and skills, everything. Even with LeBron, I doubt that LeBron has taken a bunch of classes on finance and investing, but I bet you the people around him have. I know that LeBron sends the people in his camp to school to learn the skills that he may not have because he says, my specialty is playing basketball. I'm focused on that. But you need to go to the Nike facility and learn how to negotiate contracts. You need to go to culinary school so that you can become my dietitian. You need to go and study with the people over at Fidelity or at the Harvard Business School to learn how to manage my assets. And then boom, you've got a great team. So with your children, if you prepare them when they're young, right, you groom them to be the children of a wealthy family, right? That's a different type of grooming. That's a different type of education. There, public school will teach them how to be worker bees. Even state universities teach them how to be worker bees. Well, you're building wealth. You've cleared the path for your children. You've gone on the bombing run, so you've cleared up opportunities for them that 95% of our kids don't even have. So your educational process has to be one that teaches them how to manage assets. For example, I have a friend whose father was wealthy. She actually lives in Africa. Her father was very wealthy from cows, and her grandfather had cows, and her great grandfather had cows, and they literally passed this generational wealth through cows, from one generation to the next. And then her father passes, and she becomes the head of the family empire. And suddenly she's sitting in meetings with investment advisors and real estate people and lawyers and dealing with all the complexities that come with being rich. Well, there's a grooming process that she had to go through to be ready for that, right? So you have to groom your children to know what to do if they've got $500,000 in the bank so they don't go out here and act like a damn buffoon. Right? Because you got too many buffoons out here that literally do things with money that don't make any sense. So make sure your child understands the fundamentals of how the stock market works, of course. Real estate, how to acquire real estate, just the very basics of that. And lastly, the skill of how to run a business. They don't have to be a business owner. They don't have to be an entrepreneur, but they should understand the basics of entrepreneurship so that they can have the kind of creative thinking necessary to take that 500,000 or 300,000 that you lead them and flip that into $1 million or more. It's very easy to do if you know what you're doing. It's very hard to do if you don't. Okay. So intentionality and culture. Plan your empire. It will not come by accident. Nobody's going to give it to you. It will not come through a lottery ticket or a record deal or an NBA contract. It's going to come from you making a plan and you planting the seed. Got it? Good. Okay. So let me go to your next question here. Charity Johnson asks, these are pre-submitted questions, by the way, if you just came in. In your opinion, are these stocks more of a long-term play or a stock option play? Okay, you list a lot of stocks here, Charity. I don't know the details on every stock. I'll look at the ones that I know. I see Workhorse and Afria, looks like APHA, which Afria is a cannabis company. I see Afria and Workhorse as option plays, meaning that I used to own Workhorse in order to sell the options. Now, those of you who bought Workhorse, just know that there's a big class action lawsuit happening with Workhorse where a group of investors are alleging that the stock price was artificially pumped up by management by basically overstating the potential that they were going to actually get that U.S. Postal Service contract to make those electric vehicles. So there are a lot of people alleging various types of fraud. and you can participate in that lawsuit. Just Google it, look it up, and you can reach out to the law firm and become a part of that suit if you are a shareholder. I personally made a lot of money from Workhorse because I wasn't waiting for Workhorse stock to go up. I just sold the options. And anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about or wants to learn more about stock options and how they work, I have a whole masterclass on it. It's stockoptionsmasterclass.com. So feel free to go to stockoptionsmasterclass.com if you haven't taken a look. Okay. So the next thing that the next question I'm looking at here is she says, what's the rule of thumb for the number of shares to purchase in order to really see a 4-digit ROI? Okay, so Charity, if you're talking about a 4-digit ROI, that's pretty big. I mean, I guess you're talking about like 1,000%, which I guess would be 10xing your investment. That's not something that is you know, that's not easy to do in a short period of time. It's very easy to do in a long period of time. But if you're talking about 10xing your investment, meaning I put in, $1,000 and I turned it into 10,000, that sort of fast money thing doesn't typically happen in the stock market. And when it does, it's because you've taken a lot of extraordinary risk. Meaning, yeah, you could go put your money on some deep out of the money call options and hope for the best, but there's a greater chance that instead of getting a 10x return, you're going to lose everything you put up. So if you are going into the market in a trader like capacity, I think it's just very important to remember that trading is not the same as investing, right? So investing is more of a long-term process where you're growing wealth in a systematic fashion. Trading is just kind of rolling the dice, shooting the craps, shaking the bones or whatever. And that's fine. I mean, people do that, right? But when you gamble, you should gamble with your extra money. You should gamble with an okay to the idea that you may lose everything. And in that case, I've seen people get 1,000% return, things like that. Now, in terms of all the different ways of making money, the easiest ways I've seen people, or the quickest ways I've seen people make a lot of money really fast, is by learning how to start a business and finding all these little pockets of opportunity where you can actually build a business without spending a lot of money, maybe based on skill you have or something like that. Like I've seen women, that know how to do hair, create hair care lines, and they're able to, set the brand up properly. Next thing you know, they're making $80,000 a month or something like that. Um, so I think entrepreneurship is a great way to make cash flow and quick cash flow, even a side hustle, right? Even a little side business where you're serving some small demand. And that requires the type of thinking that you may want to get by taking a course or something like that. And then the stock market, though, to me, is more of a place where the more secure money tends to be longer term money from long term buy and hold strategies. It's not something where you're going to get a lot of the quick flips. Cryptocurrency has grown probably the fastest out of all the investment classes. But remember, in 2017, crypto had a crash. A lot of people had, $50,000 invested in crypto, and that turned into $10,000 overnight. So remember that what goes up can come down, and there are very few places where you can get all the reward with none of the risk. The world just doesn't work that way. Okay, but there are some places out there. There are some pockets of opportunity. So there you go. All right. So Robin Jackson, what is a cash sweep account in my TD Ameritrade account? I did not initiate it. Should I keep it? All a cash sweep account is in TD Ameritrade, Robin, is it's basically a place where they put your cash and you earn interest on your cash until you decide to invest your cash. The interest is nothing. It's almost non-existent. Savings accounts just really are a ridiculously sad way to grow your money because your money doesn't grow. It just kind of sits there. It's like planting your garden in concrete. It just doesn't grow. So in order to get a yield on your money, there are some, ETFs and stocks out there that pay dividends pretty consistently. There's a little bit more risk involved, but that might be a better way to get that small amount of consistent income. But if your capital base isn't that big, it's not going to be a ton of money. Like I have stocks I own that pay me dividends, and it'll be like I'll get a little notification once every couple of days, like, oh, you received $1.45 from McDonald's, right? Or today Nike paid a dividend. You got $2.82. that's not really enough to really move the needle. And so I think I like selling stock options as a way to make a little bit more money. But everything you do that generates cash flow always comes with risk. So never think you're going to get away from that. That's always there. Terrell, let's see. Hey, Doc, I paid for a private consultation 2 weeks ago. Your support staff. Oh, okay. So, Terrell, I think that was taken care of. So, yeah, so every now and then, I don't do a lot of private consultations, but if you wanted to do one, you can feel free to email support at theblackbusinessschool.com. That's support at theblackbusinessschool.com. The private consultations are not cheap. It's probably better to just talk to me in class. And that way you can submit your question. I'll answer your question. But sometimes people want to talk to me directly, and you can feel free to do that. And so, Terrell, I saw a note about you today, so I think they took care of you. Okay, so Philip Wright, Dr. Watkins, I don't want to work endless hours in business. Should I invest in existing e-commerce business or an e-commerce startup? I'm trying to understand the present future value of financial assets or both business models. Okay, so Philip, it looks like you got two questions there, but what I'll do is I'll collapse that into one discussion about not working endless hours in a business, and I think this is really important. A lot of you were led to believe that if you have a business, that you should be busting your butt and working, nonstop and everything else. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, right? I'm not saying that can't be part of the process, right? Where you start that business, you grind and you hustle, and I think I think I saw a brother that has a real great platform called Sleep is for Suckers or something like that. And I immediately said, wow, I like this guy a lot. He's smart, but I don't agree with that. I think sleep is for everybody, and I love to get my sleep because sleep is part of my mental health. If I don't get enough sleep, I'm grumpy. My body starts to do weird things. And actually, there was a person who a guy who studied cancer, and he studied thousands of cancer patients around the world. And one of the things he found was that your likelihood of getting cancer, according to this person, was linked to how much sleep you got. Sleep was one of the factors in determining whether or not people get sick and have cancers. And it makes sense because when you sleep, your body is supposed to, that's when it regenerates itself and all that. And so knowing yourself is really important. He also said that it was just as a little factoid. He linked it to, I think it was sleep, drinking enough water, which I got water right here. He said, literally going to the bathroom, getting those toxins out of your body, right? Just basic stuff that makes sense, right? And I remember learning this a long time ago that when I was thinking about the things that anybody seen that, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I promise you it's worthwhile. Did anybody see the movie Soul by Disney? Like Disney did a movie called Soul that had Jamie Foxx in it, and it was a really good movie. And basically, it was about sort of your soul and being in the zone, and really, whether you can be in a good zone or a bad zone. If you're in a bad zone, you're like stuck in a rut, and your life isn't worth, it doesn't have much meaning. But you're in a zone that way too. You're hypnotized by whatever crappy mediocre life that you've chosen, right? Well, then you got other people that go into the zone where they're just, playing basketball, or they're a great artist, or they're a great musician or writer or whatever, right? And so one of the things that was interesting about the movie and the point that was made, which I thought was really great, was the whole time, and they always do this in movies, by the way, it's called the hero's journey. Like a lot of these movies have the same blueprint. And one of the things about his hero's journey is in the beginning, he's looking for one thing. And at the end, he gets the thing he's looking for, but realizes that the thing he really wanted was with him all along. So the whole movie, and this is a spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, but the whole movie, he wants to be this famous jazz musician. He wants to perform with the best jazz artists and everything. Like, that's a big deal. Like, I want to be famous. I want to be successful. I want to achieve my goal, right? And then he gets that. But then he looks back on his life and realizes that actually the essence of life kind of came from the little things, like, eating your favorite ice cream, or sitting to have a good conversation with your special friend, or I don't know, a nice walk in the park, on a Sunday afternoon. And I identify with that really well, because that was something I remember figuring out myself was, I spent all that time wanting to do all the all of these sort of surface things that all of us aspire to, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna become really successful, and I'm gonna make sure everybody knows who Dr. Boyce Watkins is, and I'm gonna make money, and I'm gonna be highly educated, and I'm gonna win awards and all that, right? And I got all that, right? I've given speeches all over the planet. I've been on TV probably 1,000 times now, maybe 500 times, or so, I don't know. I've made plenty of money and all these other things. And it was great. It was really fun. But here's what I figured out 20 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, was I realized that really wasn't the key to my happiness. I realized, I said, man, this is terrible. Now that I have these things, I realize that I don't care. I don't, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's part of the process. Sometimes you got to get it in order to know that this really isn't the thing, right? And if you ever see like really successful people who have $1 billion in the bank who are like depressed and suicidal and on drugs, I believe it's because they really haven't found their joy and they haven't found their true purpose. They think their purpose was to become a famous actor when really their purpose might have been something very basic, like, just finding your bliss by taking your afternoon nap and spending time with your kids. And so what I learned was that the things that, at least in my own life, in my own journey, that made me happy was literally little things like, number one, getting away from white people who hate my guts. I didn't like working for white people. I don't hate white people. I just don't want to work for them because it's terrible. Um, Sleeping in, getting a chance, on days where I want to sleep in, I'll sleep till 11 o'clock because I want to sleep until I don't want to sleep anymore, right? Everybody thinks I don't sleep because I work a lot. No, I work a lot because I love what I do, but I sleep all the time. I take 2 naps a day, sometimes 3. Um, Taking my afternoon nap. I wouldn't trade anything. There's no job you can offer me anywhere right now that would make me give up my afternoon nap. And then you add on other things, spending time with my kids, um, you know, eating my favorite food, drinking a bottle of water. If I don't drink a bottle of water in a day, I don't feel balanced, right? So I encourage you to understand who you are so you can find out what is going to give you your balance and give you your true wealth, because that's going to matter a whole lot more than just going out and making a bunch of money. Like if you go make a bunch of money, like you become an entrepreneur, and this is where the conversation led me down that direction, is the person was talking about the fact that they don't want to work countless hours running a business. Well, you got to think about that when you go run a business. Like, don't go do something just because people said you can make more money doing it. Don't go just jump into an industry just because there's more money there. And this is counter to your training. You were trained as a kid to believe that you should go do any job anybody offers you that pays you the most money. If somebody said, I'll pay you $300,000 a year to shovel manure all day, a lot of people would jump at that job. And there's nothing wrong with that, not judging that. But I think maybe taking a moment to reflect on what you really want to do and figuring out, like, sort of what's your tipping point, right? Maybe if you're destitute and you have no other opportunities, of course, you do what you got to do, right? But what happens when you get to the point where you've got enough? You've got enough food. You've got enough savings in the bank. You've got a good quality of life. Maybe you got a good woman or a good man next to you. You got some kids you love and you want to spend time with them. And then somebody else comes along. The curse of being good at things is that something else always comes along where there's another opportunity to go make a little more money. How do you make that choice? Like, be very, very intentional. I like that word, intentional. That's our word for today, intentionality. Be very intentional about how you make that choice. Because I can tell you, just in terms of my own life, when I got good at what I do and people recognized that I was good at what I did, the opportunities never stopped coming. There's always another opportunity for me to do another interview. There's always another opportunity for me to give another speech and to get paid plenty of money to give that speech. Another opportunity to write another book. Another opportunity to take another trip, right? But you know what stops me is I say, no, me and my 10-year-old are going to the park today, and that is more important than coming on to the Breakfast Club, right? Or I promised Alicia that I would watch Star Trek with her tonight, and I'm gonna do that. And that's gonna interfere with my ability to come on your podcast or whatever it is that you want me to do, or to do this other thing for money. Or I don't want to travel anymore. So no, I know I'm giving up money, but I apologize. I just can't do it. Right. So figure out where your tipping point is so you can find the right balance. If you go into owning your own business, remember there's a million ways to skin that cat. Diving in as a full-time entrepreneur is not a requirement for you to generate some of the income that comes from being a business owner. There are situations that might emerge for you where someone else has a great skill and a great business and a great passion. Let's say, for example, I've always wanted to go deeper into the hair industry, and I have some investments there. I want to get more. Well, if somebody comes along and says, I have a hair salon and it's making money, and I need capital to get this thing going, then my job would be, I'd be like, okay, here's what I can do. I can go raise some money to make the investment, and also I can be a hype man. I can tell people about the business to help with the marketing. But I don't want to go into a hair salon every day. I don't want to do hair. I don't want to learn a new skill. That's not of interest to me, right? Remember, your time is actually your most valuable commodity, but you probably have been convinced to believe that money is the most valuable thing you can access. Well, the paradox is that if you're good at what you're doing, and after you finish making the moves that you're making right now, you'll get to a point where money isn't so scarce anymore, and you're going to have to go back, shift back to understanding the value of your time. Do not let people waste your time. It's very, very important. Okay, so next question. Let's see here. These are the questions you submitted. Hold on. I'm clicking here. I'm clicking. All right. Next question is from SC. Hey, Dr. Boyce, what would be your recommendation platform or app for trading options in the UK? That's a good question. And shout out to all of the Black Londoners that listen every day. I love you all very much. I love Black London. I cannot wait to see you again. When I went to London and we did an event, and it was totally packed. Like, all you guys came out, and I just want you to know how much I love you. And London is actually one of my favorite cities anywhere. There are a few. I'm going to name a few in London. I got a little list of Saxo Market, Saxo Capital. There's a company called IG, a company called SpreadX, another company called Finco, Fineco, and all these companies allow you to do options trading. Another way you might want to deal with that is go to some of the bigger banks in London and just tell them what you're trying to do, and they can guide you to some sort of platform that will allow you to do that. Same thing is true for any country that you're in right now. Shaquan Talley. Good morning, Dr. Watkins. What would happen to the stock market if the app that I own is no longer available in the future? Don't worry if your app goes out of business and it's a major company like Robinhood or Stash. You're not going to lose your money. Your money is protected because remember, you own the stock. The app does not own your stock. You own that stock. So if I own shares of GE, that's technically a deal between me and GE. I can go to GE and talk to them as a shareholder about the shares I bought in their company. The broker is just the middleman. The broker is the person or the entity that makes the deal happen. They're not the actual owner of the asset. So keep that in mind. Okay, next, Erin Wilson says, does highest implied volatility matter as much when selling a call? What are other things I should look for when deciding which stock to buy for selling options? When I go through my method of looking for which stocks to buy to sell options, I look at implied volatility. I look at trading volume to make sure it's not some company that's too lightly traded. Lightly traded companies are highly illiquid. I look at the history of that stock to see what that stock has done over time. If it's a stock that has had some crazy price swings and 50% drops and stuff like that, I'd be really careful about that. I look at what type of industry the company's in. There are lots of factors that can go into play with that. And so, and actually, that's the next masterclass I'm going to do. I've literally been putting that together for a year, and I'll let you guys know when I announce it. And we're going to spend a weekend, and I'll break down my whole process really carefully. I just want to keep testing it out before I actually release it to anybody. Because if the lab blows up, I want to make sure I'm the only casualty. I'm not going to teach you guys anything that would be harmful to you. So that's why I'm taking my time with this. But I'll let you guys know when it's ready. Don Watkins, can a rollover IRA from a previous job go to an Ameritrade Spider, SPDR? That's what we were talking about earlier, the S&P 500 Spider, the ETF that allows you to own a piece of every stock in the S&P. Yes, you can. You can roll over your IRA to any brokerage account you may have. And all you got to do is just contact them and tell them what you're trying to do. And that will allow you to do that. Okay, next question. Terrell Tomlin. Since there are so many different areas on E-Trade, how do I comb through them? I have an E-Trade account. How do I make money? Okay. Well, to learn E-Trade, what I encourage you to do is don't try to learn it all at once. E-Trade has a lot of extra functionality. There's just so much in there that you can do. And so you may want to just watch a tutorial. Just go on YouTube and type in E-Trade tutorial, and they'll explain everything and what's there. And then what happens after that is just repetition kicks in. Just practice every day. Just get in there every day, log into new sections, read what's there. But you're probably not going to ever learn every single thing there is to know on E-Trade. These platforms can be pretty complex. There's a lot going on. And it doesn't mean that the complexity should scare you. It just means that you don't have to feel like you have to understand everything in deep detail in order for you to use it. You may just understand the basics. That's okay too. Um, Next question, Israel Richardson. How can teenagers get into stocks in the stock market and start their profile early? Very easy. There are things called custodial accounts. Custodial accounts are available on apps like Stash and a few others, where you can actually get an account in the name of the child and allow the child to control their own assets. I don't use custodial accounts with my children because my children are a bunch of little spoiled brats. I love them to death, but I told them straight up, this is our family money, and you're not going to get it until you earn it. And so we're going to invest for you. And if you act right, then the trust will release funds to you when you get about 25 years old. If you don't act right, like if you want to go take all our money and go spend it on your new boyfriend or something like that, that the trust will not allow that to occur. So ultimately, I that's my personal point of view, but I do think it's okay to allow them to have something in their name that allows them to trade consistently. But I'll tell you what, I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard sometimes to get kids into money and investing. Some of you are lucky. I know in the Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program, we have a lot of teenagers that are literally making more money than most grown-ups. They literally have accounts of like $50,000 and stuff like that, because they just naturally took to it. Like I was like that when I was 12. I wanted money. I wanted to, I was selling candy door to door. I was delivering newspapers. I got my first job as soon as I could. Like I literally started working in a restaurant when I was 14. I started selling candy door to door when I was 12 because I wanted to have money. But sometimes, when you raise these kids in the suburbs or whatever, where they never know scarcity, they've never known what it's like to not have enough food in the refrigerator, or to have things that they want and they can't get it. Like to go in, I remember going into a Wendy's and I fantasized about having enough money to eat at Wendy's. I swear to God, I remember thinking, my God, these cheeseburgers are $2.50. I can't afford to eat here. Right. And I remember thinking, man, it would be really nice. This is how stupid this is the mind of a 8-year-old. But I remember thinking, man, I can't wait till get enough money where I can go to Wendy's and eat whatever I want, or I can go to the movies and I can get the $4 popcorn and a drink to go with it. Like those are my fantasies. Those are my financial fantasies. And I think that the benefit of having that kind of hunger is that it made me very ambitious at an early age. I wanted to go out here and hustle. And in fact, if you could have replaced all my years in college literally by putting me in a program. If there was a program called How to Make Money Like a Millionaire, where millionaires were teaching me how to become a millionaire like them, I would have took that over college any day of the week, because I went to college and learned all that crap just so I could find a way to not be broke anymore. Like that was literally my motivation. Everybody doesn't have the same motivation. I think it's okay to be you and be who you are. But literally that was what I wanted to know. Sometimes our kids don't have that, and that's what you got to kind of process as well. Is part of the reason that a lot of wealthy families lose their wealth in one generation is because your kids are cursed. You think that they're privileged when really they're cursed. Well, really, you were the privileged one, because there's a privilege in pain. There's a privilege in going through the struggle, right? There's a little bit of black privilege. Black excellence tends to emerge from the black struggle. People who are excellent at things are people that tend to have gone through the toughest training program, the most difficult experiences. They've overcome the worst obstacles, right? Those tend to be the strongest people. The people who never trained, the people who never had to overcome anything, the people who had everything that handed to them, those people are disabled. Like we think that that's privilege because everybody's caught up like, oh, that was so traumatic. We shouldn't put kids through trauma. And I get that. I totally get that. But some of the experiences I had as a kid that would be defined as traumatic, which I'm sure that they were. I'm sure that there's something in all these psychology textbooks that would say that I was traumatized in an unfair way when I was a kid. You know, some of those experiences really made me strong. It made me grateful. It gave me determination. Like getting bullied at school. Like you remember back in the day when you go to school and some bullies like taking your lunch money and beating you up, and and you can't do anything because you're 10 and he's 14, and and he's on the football team, and like stuff like that. Not to say I think every kid should have to go through that, because it was terrible, but those things give you survival skills. And so if you talk about I believe almost every tragedy, almost every difficulty can be flipped into a positive, and sometimes we forget about the positive. We're so focused on people always being comfortable all the time, no matter where they are, what they're doing, or whatever, that we forget that you're making them disabled when you never allow them to go through anything. So it's because I went through so much that I gained the hunger to become successful in so many other things, right? It was because Michael Jordan got cut. He went through the trauma of being cut from the eighth grade basketball team that he was fueled to go on to become the greatest basketball player, or one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. So just always remember the yin and the yang of that. You know, being privileged ain't always a privilege. Sometimes it's a disability. All right. So, Marcus, if investing in individual stocks, how many do you usually buy at once for each company? It really depends on how much money you have. It's really about spreading your money out. That's the key idea. And really, even deeper than that, though, you can buy one ETF or one mutual fund and be pretty well diversified. So don't even think you have to go buy a bunch of different stocks. It's really about style. It's about sort of the approach that you're most comfortable with. It's totally up to you. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do. So by the way, if you want to, if you send an individual question, you want to see your individual answer and everything else where you miss a session, we meet every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com to see the recording. You can also log in to see, all the shares, the different types of stocks that I'm buying each week. I've done this probably for well over a year, and there's this probably maybe 50 or 60 different entries in there. You can take a look at which stocks and why. And then also you can submit your questions to me. And also I encourage you to go to the blackstockmarketprogram.com, log in. It's the blackstockmarketprogram.com. And you can actually go in and leave your question as well, and see the curriculum that's already there. There's a ton of curricula there. So if you go in there every day and just kind of watch some videos, not only I personally think that, I don't know, I personally think this is very entertaining and fun to talk about, right? So and I've been a weirdo for years, so you can go back and literally watch stuff that I did 2-3 years ago. But also it allows you to learn this stuff without the high pressure sort of approach where you have to take exams and know specifics. You don't have to know all the specifics in order to become an adequate investor. Okay, so log into blackstockmarketprogram.com. Feel free to do that. And one thing I want to mention to you guys is actually we're doing we have the Black Business Lecture Series, which is kind of a Black version of TED Talks with Black entrepreneurs and millionaires that come through the Black Business School to talk about what they're good at. And this week we've got somebody coming in that's really, really good that you may want to take a look at. Her name is attorney Tanya Nebo. Tanya Nebo is an attorney out of Atlanta whose specialty, her superpower, is that she has helped dozens of families buy franchises. Franchises are a great way to make money because you have a proven business model that's out of the box, where they train you, just like when you took a class in school, they train you on the business model. So what that does is that keeps you from having to go through the stress of figuring out, well, what kind of business do I want to do? How do I do it? What's the best model? That process of just figuring out what business you want to do and how to do it can take 5 years. I've seen people take 5-10 years to get their stuff together in terms of figuring their business out. Well, a franchise allows you to simply pay some sort of setup fee and obtain a family franchise. And then they tell you exactly how to run the franchise. Everything's been tested. They can tell you, like, okay, this is how you sell the cheeseburgers, or this is how people want their carpets done, or whatever. And you can take that franchise and kind of run with it as a family business. And this has been a great way for people to get off the plantation. So if you want to go take a look, if you go to theblackbusinessseries.com, theblackbusinessseries.com. If somebody could type that in, I'd appreciate it. It's theblackbusinessseries.com. Her special master lecture is going to be on Thursday, I believe it's 7 or 8 p.m. It's on the landing page, and that's the blackbusinessseries.com. So feel free to go take a look at that, and you can join us for